Hello indie game fans, the summer of indie games continues where there's always something new to play, with the best releases of the week beginning with CYGNI All Guns Blazing, a surprising entry since this is a straight up vertical shoot 'em up, which is not common at all these days, where they have somehow convinced Konami to publish this game, so let's see how it does, and I do particularly love the giant bosses in this. Another quick one here is the squad-based real-time strategy game Ratten Reich, which stars anthropomorphic animals in a diesel punk world, looking very Company of Heroes inspired, but do note that it will be an early access release. I cannot believe I'm saying this, but we also have the release of Volgarr the Viking II this week, the sequel to a game from 2013, so that is 11 years and counting. The original was a throwback action platformer that could be brutally difficult, and that appears to be the case here as well, with the thing about this game being that it is not so much Dark Souls difficult, but more super ghouls and ghosts, as well as original Castlevania, which have been known to cause a thrown controller or two. It self-describes as having a level of unforgiving 1980s arcade difficulty, so that might not sit well with a modern audience, but if you're up for a perhaps unfair challenge, this might be of interest, with the pixel art equally looking on point as well. There's something to be said about minimalist titles since the clean UI and visuals does abstract away from the busyness of the game itself, lending itself nicely in city builders, with mini settlers being the title of interest here. You are doing city building things like constructing cities and expanding, but of course, you'll need to fuel your citizens' requirements by providing them with enough food, water, power, and so on. You also have to consider transportation networks to get resources from one place to the next, and it looks very pleasant and chill, with the demo being well received, looking like it's for fans of the genre. I'm not quite sure what this game is, which might be due to a combination of me not paying attention as well as the marketing of this game, where the self-described action-adventure creature saver game Creatures of Ava looks interesting with quite the pedigree to match. You are exploring from a third-person behind-the-back perspective, encountering all sorts of fantastic creatures, battling, befriending, and even taking photos of them Pokemon Snap style, while fighting back against a corrupting force known as the Withering. However, it might be smaller in scope, just naming 30 types of wild creatures and 4 colourful ecosystems to explore, and also has an environmentalist theme at its core and looks neat, so maybe this will be cool. Other games begin with Aero GPX, an anti-gravity combat racer that has to be inspired by F-Zero, in which you are attempting to come in first place but can pull off tricks to get the advantage over your opponents. The game's gimmick is speed, and there's plenty of that, since your machine can go ridiculously fast in the thousands of kilometers per hour, with the physics in this looking neat as you can drive on any surface in any orientation in a 3D space, which of course leads to possibilities of shortcuts, even more so with jumps as well. This will be an early access release, and at this point in time is single player only, so the quality of the CPU opponents will matter a lot, with this looking to be one of the better recent racing game releases. This game is new to me and is my jam since Hero Emblems II is a match 3 RPG, one of my favourite subgenres, which unfortunately tend to be on mobile, which is where this game is from, but the developer has adapted it to PC. Interestingly, the game on mobile is also a premium title, which does not appear to have microtransactions, so I think that the developer's heart is in the right place, with the original Hero Emblems being a mobile title, so that explains why I've not heard of this before. Here's a very cool, very weird thing since Loopstructor is a roguelite defense game, only instead of towers, you are constructing battle trains which move along a loop in order to destroy your enemies. I'm sure that there's some Vampire Survivors inspiration here, but the battle train concept is new to me and quite innovative, if I do say so myself, and is an example of why I love indie games since it looks awesome and weird. You know me, I'm a sucker for rhythm games, despite not being the best at them, with Mononoke, a rhythm adventure, looking like a pretty neat one, at least from this trailer. There are combat elements to this, as you are battling enemies in order to revive abused kittens, so some content warning there, told through a cartoony presentation that's quite different from the subject matter. I believe this is run-based, so you can purchase upgrades in the middle of a run, so there is a twist on the concept and looks to be of interest. Another musically themed title is Moonless Moon, a title which I might hesitate to call a game, since it has been described as a playable music video, being largely a text-based adventure game that kind of looks like a visual novel, with the narrative being told to you, but the interactive part comes in the form of riddles and puzzles where you are searching for keywords and placing them within the body of the text. As such, it's kind of a weird thing but looks gorgeous as we follow our protagonist through different worlds and might be worth checking out. On the polar opposite end of things is one-button bosses, an all-action boss rush title, with the twist being that you only have one button which you can push, which reverses the direction that your ship is moving in. You need to do so to avoid attacks, but the trick is that the less you change directions, the faster your ship goes, and the faster you go, the faster you shoot. As such, there's an interesting risk-reward system since you need to avoid getting hit, with there being upgrades as well, such as changing your weapon or movement upgrades, where the best games actually come from intentionally limiting what you can do, making this the hidden gem of the week. I'm very curious about pixel art but never really made any real attempt at learning, so maybe Pixel Art Academy Learn Mode will be able to help. A learning tool disguised as a video game with plenty of examples and exercises for you to learn, and you can even use the objects that you create in little games within the application itself. It is not just a Photoshop-like editor like Sprite, but rather a whole fleshed out game in itself, so it will be interesting to see where this goes in early access. Here's a very pleasant looking title in Preserve, one that has described itself as a nature building game which mechanically resembles a city builder, but instead of placing down buildings, you are growing plants and placing down animals instead. All of this so that you can preserve and restore the ecosystem, following in the footsteps of relaxing city building games like Dorfromantic, but with a different twist. I'm not gonna talk about this for long since Prince of Persia The Lost Crown is made by Ubisoft, so I wouldn't consider this to be an indie game, but it is one of the better Metroidvania releases that is freed from the prison of the Ubisoft store this week, so if you love the genre, this should be of interest. Here's a neat tactics title that looks very Into the Breach inspired, but with the twist in South Pole Bebop, being that this is a multiplayer title with both PvP and PvE elements. You are playing another opponent while also fending off a zombie horde, so there are both players and CPU units to contend with. But if you were concerned with player population, there is a CPU controlled player in addition to the zombies as well. There are special characters with their own ability cards, and with this being free to play, there's no harm checking this out. This next title comes to us from Devolver, so you would think that it would make the top 10 of the week, but The Crush House is a weird dating sim thing about a reality TV dating show set in 1999, where you are the producer of the show, having to select the cast members and to keep the watching audience satisfied. Yep, not exactly my kind of game, but I can see this having the same kind of appeal as Dream Daddy, with there being some sort of sinister secret that the show is hiding, so there's mystery as well. It also self-describes as a first-person shooter, where shooting in this context is shooting the show, but still, it's kind of weird but interesting, coming to us from the developer of Reigns, so it gets a mention. A fairly popular puzzle tycoon game series is Train Valley, with 2 previous entries in the book, and their latest, Train Valley World, is releasing this week. Although the original developers are not listed as developers on this, but instead, the publisher of the previous games apparently has got control over the IP. This is similar to your railroad tycoons of the world, in which you have to build and manage efficient railroads across the globe, having to manage production chains as well as the cost. The little cities with their landmark buildings look nice, with some fantasy elements as well, so if you love trains, this looks like a no-brainer.
Граждане, я понимаю ваше негодование. Обстановка в стране довольно накаленная.
Now this next title looks kind of cool and came out of nowhere, in which VLADiK BRUTAL is a first-person shooter in which you battle mutant creatures, giant bosses, and even human soldiers in a fictional Eastern European country. The UI elements and sci-fi weaponry kind of makes it look like Half-Life, but a lot more Doom-inspired in terms of the fast-paced combat, looking absolutely brutal in terms of blood and gore. Interestingly, this developer also did not go the boomer shooter route like Rot, choosing modern visuals instead, and the most amazing thing is that this is from a solo developer, which is very impressive to me. This one's for indie game developers. The free indie game marketing resources are ready, so sign up via the link in the description below to get it in your mailbox. The top 5 begins with Deathbound, a grimdark Souls-like RPG that of course looks very Dark Souls inspired, but does have some new facets of its own. For example, this is a single player game, but is a party-based Souls-like, so you can take multiple characters into combat, seamlessly switching between up to 4 characters while fighting enemies. It also has some interesting characters, such as one that uses capoeira to attack enemies, with the classic grimdark world that looks good and might just be your next Souls-like obsession. I did preview Fields of Mystria when looking at upcoming games of the month, in which this pixel art farm simulation RPG looks to nail all the same beats as something like Stardew Valley, with the farming, side activities like mining, combat, animal raising and NPCs to get to know and romance, with a different style of pixel art which does look pretty good. I have still not gotten an answer from you in the comments why exactly this game is so popular, being one of the most wishlisted games on Steam overall, since to me, it looks like just another farming sim that admittedly looks very well made, but I do love farming games myself, so of course I'm interested in this. This next title might be not so indie, since developer Image and Form has since consolidated under the Thunderful Group banner, which is significant in size, but still, you won't be getting anything like SteamWorld Heist 2 from bigger studios, so I thought I'll give it a mention. This is set in the SteamWorld universe of steam-powered robots, with quite a different theme as compared to the original, since that was more sci-fi and you were raiding spaceships, with this having more of a nautical theme. It is a turn-based tactical game with manual aiming, so you are attempting to use physics to ricochet your shots to hit the enemy, as compared to the percentage chance to hit system in games like XCOM, which gives this an interesting feel and should be a good game. Dungeons and Degenerate Gamblers is the next roguelite card-based title that uses poker cards like in Belatro, but this time blackjack instead of poker. The different card suits have different abilities, with tarot and special cards adding to the strategy like in Belatro, and has the potential to be the next big hit. I've been banging on and on about this game for good reason, since it is the latest entry in a beloved series of action-adventure games that are just adorable as heck, with the added bonus that Cat Quest 3 is releasing on International Cat Day on August 8th, and is also from Singaporean developer The Gentle Bros, with my home country celebrating National Day on August 9th as well. It's an open world title in which you are sailing the high seas in search of treasure, battling pirates and taking strongholds by ship in a swashbuckling adventure that looks fantastic. Watch this video for more Zelda-style action-adventure games.